Hello, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. So I've had a number of comments on my video saying I look like some guy called Quevedo. Who's that then? So I looked him up and it turns out he's a Spanish rapper and singer. What are we thinking? Do I look like him? I mean, he is 21, so technically he looks like me, but whatever. Seeing as I supposedly now have a twin, I thought it would be fun to redesign one of his album covers, show you the process along the way, and at the end of this video, we'll send it to him and see if we get a response. I'm also excited because I have zero idea of what Quevedo's music sounds like, so we're going to go on a bit of a journey together. Which brings me to the first step. I should actually listen to some of his music. Now, I don't know how much of this I can actually play without getting copyright strike, but one thing I have noticed, other than the fact that he's got 112 million views on his video, is that the intro title typography on some of his most recent videos is really, really nice. If we look at some of these examples, you've got some of this distorted type here, which is, you know, adding a bit of depth. He's got the ink bleed going on. And I also like how they're all a little bit different from one another, and they could easily work as a standalone lockup or, you know, a t-shirt graphic, giving each one its own personality in a way, which I think is really interesting. So he's clearly a man with good typographic taste. Maybe we are twins. So getting to know his style a little bit more is pushing me towards a type-led outcome. Ultimately, I still want to create something that I could see him using or something that nods to the original, but I just want to have my own take on it, you know, add a little bit of Louis Moss je ne sais quoi. And from the looks of things, this is his only album. I think it's his first album, so it makes sense that we redesign this one. It's called Donde Quiero Estar, which means where I want to be. Where you want to be is right here on the Louis Moss YouTube channel, mate. I tell you that. Like, subscribe. So I'm going to start off with my artboard, and I've placed some of his existing typographic work alongside here. So I'm going to design this lockup first in black and white so I can focus on the layout, and then we can add some more effects as we develop it a little bit further. But I want to just start looking at some base fonts. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I want to add some level of warp in here, like our original reference. So I was thinking of like more of a taller font so we can sort of exaggerate the stretch going up a bit more. So I started playing around with a few of these fonts, and here are three that I've picked. And then I remembered that I saw this the other day when I was down the boozer with the lads. But these vinyl letters have been placed on this board, and they're almost placed on there in like this jumbled way, in like this kind of like not perfect structure. But I thought it was really interesting. I don't know, I had a couple pints at this point. Maybe I'm just being weird. But I thought, you know what, let's introduce this concept and start building the base of our lockup in a similar way, like sort of slightly off kilter, some of them slightly bigger, some of them slightly smaller. I don't know, when I saw this lockup and I'm thinking of the blue skies, this made me think a little bit Looney Tunes, you know. So I now have a few variations of these lockups I just put together, but I think that's an interesting starting point. So what I'm going to start doing now is adding some warp effects, basically just adding a little bit of depth to it, adding a bit of movement, tying in with the clouds. I kind of wanted something that almost fell back as if it was falling through the air. So I was trying out a few of these, some of these not working as much, but I've gone for this one, which is sort of like a reverse fisheye. I'm going to add a level of 3D to this. I've already kind of thought about that. First of all, I want to add some ink bleeds, just like, you know, the reference images that we had, and a nod to the original cover, mainly just to add some of those bubbly curves into the type. So I'm going to take it into Photoshop, and then I can convert it to a smart object, add in a threshold layer, and then add some Gaussian blur as well, and then just have a play. Cool, so I'm happy with this. I think I still want the text to be legible is the main thing, but I do want quite a bit of distortion in there. So I think this is a sort of a happy balance. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to take it back into Illustrator because I want to image trace this, and then I want to refine the edges so it's smoother. So I'm going to do that. And then what I want to do is I'm going to add a 3D bubble effect. So I need those edges to be super clean, because otherwise when we take it into 3D, it's going to be all over the gaff, mate. So this should be fine for now. So I'm going to open my 3D panel, and then I'm going to start adding some of these 3D effects. And I want it to look a bit plasticky. Imagine like almost milk glue type of thing, you know what I'm saying? And then if I give this a render, let's see how that is looking. Yeah, I think this is a good starting point. We could always come back and edit it later on down the line, but I think this is the sort of right direction. So taking this now into Photoshop, and I'm going to add in the clouds background classic. So I actually think this is a bit too harsh with the lockup in the front and this in the background. I kind of want to focus on the type and stuff in the foreground, so I'm going to blur this a little bit. What am I going to do with this image? I feel like I kind of want to do the back cover as well. It'd be a bit of a waste if I just did the front. We saw the images at the start side by side, so maybe I'll do the back as well. Actually, hold up, wait, pens down. let's have a chat. Now, recently I've been trying to design more physical pieces, you know, something you can actually look at, hold, pick up, something you walk into the room and you could kind of see it there, you can actually interact with it. I feel like I work with so much digital that I actually miss physical assets. We're designing a front and a back cover anyway, why don't we just actually design a vinyl sleeve? So a quick search online, I have found a net, which I can open in Photoshop, and then I've just gone ahead and made some masks for my artwork. Back to the cover though, I do still want Quevedo on the front there, and I had this idea to make him a bit cartoony, so I'm going to bring in his portrait and cut it out, tidy up the edges a little bit, and I thought it'd be quite fun if I overlaid his eyes a bit bigger, like you know in cartoons where the eyes like pop out of their heads. That's sort of what I'm going for here. I don't just want the headshot though, I want a full body shot. So I found a combination of editorial images which I've comped together using generative refill to fill in any areas for me, and then just tidying up any of those edges as well that were looking a bit rough. And here is my full-length collaged image. I think it's pretty interesting with the perspective, again playing into this cartoon vibe, so this can now be dropped into my composition. So when doing my research into the album, he mentions where he wants to be in a geographical sense as well as within the music scene, maybe feeling slightly isolated where he currently is. So I wanted to play into this by having him stand on his own little planet, much bigger than it, almost towering over everything else, which does a good job of telling that story. So I can position that to make it look like he stood on it, and then I'm going to slightly warp this text coming around the planet just to make it a little bit more immersive. As much as I'm liking the composition of everything here, I think there's a little bit too much battling for attention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the text to the divide blending option, add some copies to make it sharper, but so the text looks transparent, almost like bubbles instead. It also allows the background to come through, which ties it all in nicely. Cool, so I think we're almost there with the front. I've just added in his name and his tagline into this lockup with the same process I did before, which fills this space nicely. I'm also going to add a little bit of a drop shadow behind him just to lift him off the text, and some below his feet as well to make that look more realistic, and that should be the cover done. I'm liking this vibe. So let's drop that into the template and see where we're at. Get this into position, and I can sort my clouds out, and I think we're looking good. Just try to think, like if you had a vinyl on the front, pull it out the right hand side, needs to go on the other side, doesn't it? Right, now we're done. Let's go on to the back. So I'm not 100% on what I'm going to do for this, but I know that I want the same text effect on the back. I want it to be slightly cleaner and more minimal than the front, with all the tracks stacked in the middle. Luckily, I was able to copy and paste the track list from online, which saved a bit of time. Now, all I have to do is outline the text, rotate and move each letter, add ink bleed, image trace, smooth, reposition each word, and make sure the spacing is about even. And then finally add some 3D. Lol. Liked how it turned out though, so worth it. Let's get into Photoshop and straight into my template now that we're almost done. I want to position that in the middle and then apply the same divide blending mode and make sure that everything is legible. And then I'm also going to add a couple of these little text and graphic details around the outside just to bring it all together. One last thing before I'm happy to go to print. When I was reading up about the album, the artist mentions his local supermarket in a bunch of his songs. I guess it's sort of a signifier of his area, maybe nostalgia to him growing up. So I wanted to have that in as a little reference somewhere. So I thought, why not just give him a shopping bag with the Hyperdino logo on it, and then I replaced the logo with his name, so it's more personalized. Right, so the design is done. Now it's time to go get this printed and turn it into an actual vinyl sleeve. My only concern is how the blues are going to turn out. Blues always look a bit muted, a bit washed out when you're printing them, so there's only one way to find out. Right, I'm back with the print, so let's have a look. So when I was chatting to the old mate at the print shop, he had a digital printer set up, which means that I could achieve much more accurate colours. So the blues actually turned out really nicely. Any gradients will be cleaner too without any banding lines. I got this printed on a range of different paper stocks because I wasn't sure on the feel and the finish that I wanted. This is 250 GSM, 300 GSM and 400 GSM. And I actually think I'm going to go with the 250 GSM. I also brought some supplies, a cutting mat, a scalpel, a ruler, and some decent glue that apparently smells really weird. Let's give it a whiff. Yeah, that's not great. Right, let's get this cut out. Can then remove all the excess and I have my net. I can tidy up any edges that I'm not happy with and then just use my ruler slightly and a little bit of the scalpel here, just very lightly on these fold lines so that I can make a clean fold. I can then use this stinky glue on the tabs, and then once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to hold it underneath these two books just so it dries flat. It's going to take a minute or two to dry, and once that's dry, we're done. What do you guys think of the final artwork? I'm really happy with how this has turned out. The only thing that would have been cool is if I did the actual record as well, which I've obviously done. I'll show you a closer shot of that here. I used the same graphics from the cover, added the track list and some nice text details on there, and added them into a similar template. I also managed to print this onto some sticky vinyl so I could cut it out with a circle cutter and then stick it straight onto a record that I bought from eBay. But that is it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think. Go send it to Quevedo if you're feeling generous, and maybe he'll let me work on his next album cover or something. I don't know. Either way, I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, please like, comment, and subscribe, as it really does help the channel. And I'll catch you again soon with a new video. So take care and see you in a bit. Who is Avocado?